Welcome to the Calcutta Race's Summer Meeting 2022, second day, Wednesday, 9th March 2022 race preview. The first race of the afternoon is the Ines Ugly Cup for horses rated 41 to 66, rated 21 to 46 to be run over a distance of 1200 meters. First up, we're looking at number 1, East Side. East Side has had 5 starts in the season, has placed a couple of times. In race number 10, it finished on 4th behind Dundee Satyagraha. Then in race number 62, it finished on 3rd behind Legendary Striker. In his last start, it was travelling in 7th spot, then eventually came out and finished on 5th behind Delphine, today ridden by Rupal Singh, who claims an allowance. Number 2 is Harbour Sunrise, another horse which has had 5 starts. It placed 3rd in race number 29 behind The Undertaker. Then it finished on 5th behind Legendary Striker in race number 54. In its last start, it was travelling in 3rd spot when asked for an effort. It didn't have much to offer, fell back and eventually finished on 5th of 5 runners. The winner here was Legendary Striker. Number 3 is Astral Force. 5 starts for Astral Force. First up, it finished on 4th behind Camila. Then it finished on 9th behind Dundee Satyagraha. Then it finished on 9th again behind Nova. Then it finished on 5th in over 2000 meters behind 3rd Avenue. In his last start, was travelling in 4th spot as they entered the home straight. Then went backward and finished on 8th of 10 runners. The winner here was Mogul. It was reported after the race that Astral Force blood vessels had burst. Next up, we got number 4, Whispering Grass. 3 starts for Whispering Grass. First up, it finished on 4th behind Dundee Satyagraha over 1200 meters. Next up, it finished on 2nd in over 1100 meters behind Legendary Striker. In his last start, took the turn in 3rd spot, then tried to make some late gains, but eventually had to settle for 3rd spot, about 4 3/4 lengths behind the winner, which was Debu's car. Couple of runners we're looking at. Number 5 is Memorable Memories and number 6 is Atom. Memorable Memories has had 5 starts. His best start was in race number 54, where it came out and finished on 4th behind Legendary Striker. In his last start, was travelling in 11th spot as they entered the home straight, eventually finished on 2nd last of 14 runners. Number 6 is Atom, who has placed a couple of times in earlier start. In race number 56, it finished on 2nd behind Top Notch over 1400 meters. In race number 65, it finished on 2nd behind Little Finger. In his last start, it was in a forward position, but then ran out of gas and eventually finished on 9th of 14 runners. We move on to the second race of the afternoon, the Navy Cup for horses rated 61 to 86, rated 41 to 66, eligible to be run over a distance of 1600 meters. The first runner we're looking at is number 1, Phoenicia Glynn. Was a winner in race number 31 over 1400 meters, where it got the measure of Black Pearl. Since then, Phoenicia Glynn runs 8th in the next race behind Tigrio. In his last start, Phoenicia Glynn was in a forward position when asked for an effort, then accelerate on, eventually finished on 4th of 10 runners behind Agnostic. 3 runners we're looking at. First up, we got number 2, Justified. Justified already winner of a couple of starts in this season. In race number 38, it got the measure of Cliffhanger. In race number 86, over 2000 meters, it got the measure of Dornish by the closest possible margin, where it went on a start to finish mission, was given a breather at the 600 meter marker, then kicked on again and fought on gallantly. Number 3 was Kimaya, who raced a little keenly throughout and eventually finished on 4th of 5 runners. Number 5 was Cletus, who was in 3rd spot and stayed on in 3rd spot. Couple of runners we're looking at. Number 4 is Agrami. Agrami was winner in race number 16 over 1400 meters, got the measure of Top Notch, and his next start it finished on 3rd behind Tigrio over 1400 meters. In his last start, it was travelling in 7th spot as they entered the home straight, made up 1 place and eventually finished on 6th. Number 6 is Exotic, who had 1 start in the Calcutta track, where it took the turn 9th spot but came up with a very eye-catching run to eventually come out and finish on 3rd behind Tigrio. Number 7 is Night Secret. Night Secret had a start in the monsoon season where it won in over 1600 meters. In its only start in the winter season so far, it took the turn in 2nd spot, but then weakened very rapidly and eventually finished on 9th of 9 runners. The winner here was Daring Heart. Lastly, we look at number 8, Basharat. Basharat placed a couple of times in the early part of the season. In race number 3, it finished on 2nd behind Sea Lion. In race number 20, it finished on 2nd behind 3rd Avenue. Then Basharat has had back-to-back wins in race number 37. It won over 1600 meters, got the measure of Ansegar. In his last start, Basharat took the turn in 5th spot, then got in a ding-dong battle with Centurion and got the race by about half a length. We move on to the third race of the afternoon, the Oakmead Plate for maiden horses 3-year-old only, to be ridden by jockeys of Indian nationality, to be run over a distance of 1400 meters. First up, we got a couple of runners. Number 1 is Guillaume. Guillaume is by Top Class out of Hallelujah. And Guillaume in his first start, the only start it has had so far, it was travelling in 3rd spot, then made up some late gains and finished on 2nd. And we also had number 5, Udukai. Udukai took the turn in the 6th spot and eventually came out and finished on 3rd. The winner here was Sonata, who won that race by almost 8 lengths. Next up, we got number 2, Hellblazer. Couple of starts for Hellblazer. First up in race number 55, it finished on 9 behind Tuscany. In its next start, it was a little slow to begin. The one we are looking at in race number 78 took the turn in last spot, then made some late gains in a blanket finish for placings and eventually finished on 4th behind Success, who won that race by a widening margin of 9 lengths. Number 3 is Island Lass, Netpeas out of Matilda. Couple of starts for Island Lass. First up, it finished on 3rd behind Risina Star. In race number 43, in its last start, it took the turn dash from the field, Lonely Last, but then eventually came out and beat one home and finished on 4th of 5 runners. The winner again was Risina Star. We move on to the fourth race of the afternoon, the Robin Hood Handicap for horses rated 21 to 46, rated 1 to 26, eligible for horses 5-year-olds and over, to be run over a distance of 1200 meters. First up, we got 4 runners. Number 1, Ember Glow was a winner in race number 9 over 1200 meters, got the measure of Indian Tiger. Couple of places effort in his last 2 starts. In his last start, it took the turn in 3rd spot, eventually finished on 3rd. Number 5 is Script. Script was taking the turn in 8th spot, eventually finished on 7th. We had number 7, which is Mystic Star, took the turn in 4th spot, weekend and finished on 6th. We had number 8 is Wandering Angel, who was a winner in the beginning of the season in race number 2, where it got the measure of Tahoe. In his last start, Wandering Angel finished on 5th behind Little Finger. Number 2 is Nandini's Pet. Nandini's Pet was a winner in race number 27 over 1200 meters, where it got the measure of Sir Phoenix. Then it finished on 3rd in race number 35 behind Indian Tiger. In his next start, it finished on 2nd behind Forevermore. In his last start, was leading the pack, but then gradually fell back and eventually finished on 6th of 10 runners. The winner here was the Flying Eagle. Number 3 is Cormorant. Cormorant has had 3 starts in the season, has not really bothered the judges. Finished on 6th in his first start in race number 10 behind Dundee Satyagraha. In his next start again finished on 2nd, 6th behind Dundee Satyagraha. In his last start, took the turn in 10th spot and eventually finished on 10th of 11 runners behind Santana. Number 4 is Aftershock. Aftershock, 3 starts for Aftershock so far, has not placed in any of them. First up, it finished on 6th in race number 22 behind Adonica. Next up, it finished on 7th in race number 48 behind Centurion. In his last start, took the turn in 4th spot, gradually weakened and eventually finished on 8th of 10 runners. The winner here was Discover, who got that race by almost length and 3/4. Number 6 is Shivalik Silk. Shivalik Silk placed in earlier part of the season in race number 28 and over 1100 meters behind Secret Pearl. Since then has been unplaced in 3 starts. And his last start was travelling in 2nd last spot as they entered the home straight, made up a placing and eventually finished on 5th of 7 runners. The winner here was Bahulian, who won that race by almost 2.5 lengths. We move on to the 5th race of the afternoon, the Zelda Handicap. For horses rated 1 to 26 to be run over a distance of 1200 meters. First up, we got number 1, Mr. Gucci. 3 starts for Mr. Gucci after being unplaced in his first 2 starts. In his last start, Mr. Gucci was in 2nd spot as they entered the home straight and eventually finished on 2nd to finish in the place. And the winner here was Regency Gold, who got that race by almost length and 3/4. couple of runners. Number 2, Jinsuku. Jinsuku was fighting for the lead into the last 300 meters, but eventually had to settle for third spot. We also had number 6, which is Light in the Sky, a horse which took the race a little wide throughout and eventually finished on 5th of 9 runners. The winner here was Ashwamegh, who was produced wide and took charge into the last 200 or so and won that race by almost length and a quarter. Number 3 is Rewrite the Stars. 3 stars for Rewrite the Stars. In his first start, it finished on 2nd behind Excite over 1400 meters. Subsequently, it finished on 5th behind Cape Tana Ross. In his last start, Rewrite the Stars, who was observed to be bleeding from his nostril, eventually finished on 10th of 13 runners. The winner here was Mandolin. We move on to number 4, Unstoppable. Unstoppable has had a couple of eye-catching runs. In race number 8, it finished on 2nd behind Adorinda. In his last start, Unstoppable took the turn in 4th spot but made up some lead gains and finished on 3rd behind Lady Lorraine, almost 5 1/4 lengths behind the winner. Next up we got number 5, Sun God. Sun God has been knocking on the doors. First up it placed on 3rd in race number 14 behind Anika. Next it finished on 4th behind Mosse. In his last start took the turn in 7th spot, made up some lead gains. And as you can see in the blue and red jacket on the top screen, it came up and finished on 2nd behind Star Justice. We move on to the 6th race of the afternoon, the Wise Man Cup, for horses 4-year-old and over, to be run over a distance of 1400 meters. Number 1 is Awesome One. Awesome One has won back-to-back races. First up, it won in race number 72, where over 1400 meters it got the measure of Soaring High. In his last start, Awesome One was carrying 61 kilos and was travelling in 2nd spot. Eventually came out and won that race by a neck, beating Dundee Satyagraha. We also had number 4, Dundee Satyagraha, who was travelling in last spot, came up with a flying finish and just missed out, lost by a neck. Number 2 is Shivans. Shivans has won a couple of races in this season, over 1400 meters in race number 18, over 1400 meters again in race number 47. In his last start, Shivans was in last spot as they entered the home straight. This was over 1600 meters. Then Shivans came up with a late dash, but the winner Tigview had already got the race sewn up and Shivans settled for 2nd spot. Number 3 is Abhay Gama. A couple of starts for Abhay Gama. First up in race number 40, it finished on 5th behind Sitara over 1200 meters. In his next start, it went over 2200 meters where it took the turn in 3rd spot, eventually weakened and finished on last of 4 runners behind Redoubtable. We move on to the 7th and last race of the day, the Partisan Handicap for horses rated 21 to 46, rated 1 to 26 eligible to be run over a distance of 1600 meters. We got number 1, Vanguard, who has been a winner in this season over 1600 meters in race number 21, where it got the measure of Arrow. In its next start, Vanguard went on a start-to-finish mission and eventually got caught close home by Magnite and finished on 2nd. In his last start, Vanguard was ridden in check and eventually finished on 3rd behind Dornish, almost 8 lengths from the winner. We got quite a few runners taking part in this last race, which was won by Wenching, which was Wenching's 2nd win in a row. Wenching took the turn in 4th spot and eventually came out and won, beat the field by about 2.5 lengths. We had number 3 is UV. Took the turn in 8th spot, made some late gains and finished on 6th. We had number 5, Apna Time Maig, after an eye-catching start in race number 83 where it finished on 2nd. In his last start, Apna Time Maiga raced in the 6th spot, weekend and finished on 9th. We had number 8, which is Arrow. Arrow took the turn in 11th spot and made up some placing and finished on 8th. We have number 10, which is Nazaka, took the turn in 7th spot and came out and finished on 5th. And we also had number 11, Winchase, who took the turn in 9th spot, eventually finished on 7th. Number 4 is the Indicator. The Indicator, after placing in his first start over 1600 meters behind 3rd Avenue. Next, it finished on 5th behind Magnite. In his last start, the Indicator was traveling in 2nd spot as they entered the home straight, then made some gains and eventually took charge and won that race by 2.25 lengths from the late finishing Shopify. Couple of runners we're looking at. Number 6 is Deem to Fire. Deem to Fire, first up, it finished on 2nd behind 3rd Avenue in race number 7. In its last start was installed. The favourite took the turn in 6th spot, made some late eye-catching gains and finished on 3rd. We had number 7 is Creation of God. First up, it finished on 2nd behind Adonica over 1400 meters. In his last start over 2000 meters, it took the turn in 7th spot, weakened a little and finished on 8th of 12 runners. Lastly, we look at number 9, Beat the Bank. Beat the Bank skipped the monsoon season. This one we are looking at is from the previous winter season where it had a couple of starts. In race number 17, it finished on 11th of 12 runners behind Donish. In race number 92, it took the turn in 8th spot and eventually stayed on in 8th and finished on behind Timer's Choice. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. See you at the races or our YouTube coverage.